With the physical release of Fusion World, Pie Chart Master Eggman decided to throw a webcam tournament with allowing proxies. And with that, I figured it'd be the perfect opportunity to get in a little bit of practice before the release of the digital client. Now, you guys know me, I do love my Gohan and I love my ramp strategies, but I had to ask myself, I think that's what everyone else is going to be doing. So what do I want to do if I don't want to face the mirror over and over and over again? Well, we already know that yellow is a phenomenal strategy, has some good early game, but presses really well with the aggro. And I have a couple of theories of how good Cooler might be. And so we decided to throw together a deck, but how do I do it? How aggro do I go? How control do I go? And where is the balance? And when it comes to these things, you guys know me, I like to mess around with my ratios. So we ended up going for a balance of the Ginyu package as well as some top end with some consistency pieces thrown in the middle to make it work. Now don't get me wrong, I plan on testing every strategy, especially green, but I figured for this first one, how about we get to the bottom of whether Cooler is any good going into the meta. We have 6 rounds in front of us, and if we win it all, we get a box, top 8 getting a couple of codes for the digital client. Jumping into this first game, we are playing against Gohan, which makes me feel good about the fact that we were going to see a lot of green and mirrors. Generally, you do want to press Gohan down, so effectively we're going to be trying to line ourselves up to be applying a lot of pressure whenever we can and do it early and fast, especially if we have a lot of self-awakeners in our hand that can really keep on pushing it. The grid hits hurt a lot for Gohan, especially since we're a 20k, so he can't just combo away the Gohan that's on board to be able to not take it, and he doesn't get the card in hand. And with the fact that he's going to want to combo early to be able to not take the damage, means that it puts him in an awkward spot. Here we do have Zarbon, and I thought about not attacking with Zarbon, but figured, you know what, we can probably go into it just fine. Didn't have really the combo power in hand to keep it, though if I had a super combo, might have considered it. Now we do go ahead and charge up to 3, and this is when we're really considering how we turn out the gears. We do go ahead and swing into the leader, figuring we are never going to get in a position to get rid of that Trunks, and that's a-okay. Combos out of the attack, which is fine. Hey, you don't want to lose the 1 card in life, but it costs you a card in hand, then we're kind of ahead here regardless. Here I'm thinking about how I want to sequence my Ginyu plays, just because I want to wait and see if we could line up with the Raccoon or not. Did end up just going for a straight Ginyu to give us the additional energy and be able to go for the Jice swing, and then we get to Supernova on top of the Ginyu, hitting for 40k, making it a huge swing, forcing him down to 3, which is great, and then keeping the Trunks down, which means that Gohan here is going to have to put so much more work into trying to mitigate our board. Here we do see the swing into the Jice, which makes sense. It's only a 15k on the opponent's turn, which is a little bit easier to get there, and I'm just considering whether I should save it or not, and I figure, you know what, why not save it? Because I know right now my opponent wants to play the Vegeta, and this will assure that I'll at least have 2 things on board after the Vegeta attacks and does a pitch, and I want him to pitch. I don't totally mind that, especially since he combos as well to be able to get something off of the board. So now out of this play, I would manage to get an additional 2 cards out of my opponent's hand, which is exactly where I want to be. Now, again, we're ignoring the board. We're not going to be controlling it anytime soon. So we swing into the leader, and unfortunately, my turn 4 is atrocious. I had nothing to play. Honestly, a completely dead hand. I think I did have a 4-drop, but I didn't want to play into it if my leader wasn't awakened, because then it would just kind of be a sitting duck there, and I didn't want to do that to the removal. So instead, we'll just take the hit from the leader here, which we feel pretty good about, especially since now we can awaken and kind of dig for a few cards, especially once we're at the 4 energy threshold. Being able to attack 2 times with Cooler, with Frieza, makes a really big deal. Here, we're just going to draw and take the card because we want the additional life. And now we're in a position to be able to apply a lot of pressure. Of course, we want to get the Trunks out of the way because we don't want our opponent being able to ramp off of it. So we'll now play out the Cooler, which puts us in a great position to attack multiple times. If you don't combo with the Trunks, we get rid of it. So now we swing for 35 because we want to force the opponent to have to use cards or use their ability, still do damage regardless. So here we have a swing into the lead, kind of just trying to see if we can debate anything here, but arguably it was probably better to just get rid of the Cooler here regardless, but I think I also want to dig for some cards. Nevertheless, go ahead and use our ability, restand the Cooler, swing into our opponent, and then get rid of that. I will say I did forget the fact that it pops a 2k, so it doesn't really matter here at the end of the day, but it is just something to remind you that like that Trunks should be gone, but it's a-okay for now, especially if our opponent dumps some combo. Now they're low on hand. They're currently standing at having 7 energy. So we are on thread here of like a double striker or something like that, but we're aware of this. I think we're being wary of it, especially knowing that we can restand and then block afterwards. So here we go, and we just take it. opponent, trying to figure out what the lines are to be able to push through, seeing that now we have the blocker and obviously the double strike can't stop us. What are the lines here that are able to get us there? Only at 20k, that's fine. We can combo out of that. I'm not too worried about that. And now I do consider just taking this one. And the reason I take is because I know this won't get through if my cooler stands up. So we're just going to put that kind of pressure here. Now we know we can block, get rid of the trunks, which again, we could have gotten rid of that. But now here we have the Turtles trying to beat down on my cooler, knowing that he probably can't survive from the attacks after that. So we'll just go ahead and double super combo. Yes, it's 10k out of my hand, but it gives us the opportunity to be able to have the additional attacks, especially if our opponent was ready to commit that much into the cooler just not being there at all. I would almost argue it might have been better to keep those cards on the defense instead, but now we just got to keep pressing. I mean, he's got energy up, so we just have to see if we can line up our plays in a way that allow us to be able to deal a lot of damage here. So 35, we always need to account for that Gohan ability here. All right, and now they're going it down to 1, which gives us a huge opening here for our Frieza. Just trying to consider how much to combo to kind of deal with it. We're going with 50 here, was able to use the leader ability and then a gigantic meteor, pitch, swing, and we're going in for 50, which is enough to close out the game. Our first green matchup in the bag, and this is going exactly the way I had calculated it. Just enough aggro to be able to make green feel very uncomfortable and force them in a position where they can't take control of the game with their top ends. That's 1 in the books, 5 more to go. Let's see if we can do it again. Kicking off into this round, back-to-back mirrors, which is nice to see that my call of not wanting to play a bunch of green mirrors was actually correct. We are able to go second here, which we're really happy about because we can apply a bunch of pressure. So our first turn play here is getting the Self-Awakeners on a board. Doing much of the same that we did in game 1, which is just applying as much pressure as possible. Gohan is doing Gohan things here, just playing cantrip after cantrip, turn over turn, which we don't feel too bad about because naturally we swing for 20 here. So they're going to have to use multiple to get rid, especially when we combo this alongside the Frieza, which is able to clean up the board a little bit and prevent the free combos that Gohan would have here from the board. So do swing in here. We got rid of 2 of the combos here, and then we'll just go ahead, swing the Zarbon into the combo. Just for now, get rid of it and just give the Gohan a little bit less to be able to work with. Swings into us, which we don't mind because at this point we don't mind being awakened. Maybe we can play a 3-drop or something like that. We also don't mind getting additional draws, especially since we're just doing 20k turbo at this point. So I will awaken, I will draw, I will swing, I will draw, just digging in, and the opponent will keep on taking, likely keep on taking until they can awaken. So here we do see the awaken, and then we have a combo out, and then we will indeed go ahead and pay the 3 for the 3-drop vanilla. This card actually ends up putting a ton of work as a 25k basic, and it is nice if you're ever in a position of being on turn 3 and wanting to have a restand body. 25k is an annoying amount of pressure to just ditch in over and over and over again, especially since we want to force our Gohan player if necessary and putting them in a position to not be able to end us. I will say though, this Gohan that pops the board puts an incredible amount of work. It's a big beefy attacker. It's able to pop 4-drops, which obviously is bad for our coolers and our 4-drop Frieza. So we do need to be careful that we are susceptible to this card. It is an incredibly good card in the matchup, but we just ignore what's on board because we're never in a position to be able to board control, and we'll just go ahead and press into our opponent. Here we have the cooler swing. Being able to try to get additional 30k swings on here, big deal. And we were able to bait out the opponent to blow up their energy, which is great because now we know that they're set back by an entire turn, so we don't have to fear getting double strike down. We don't have to fear too many beat sticks. And here we can see the charge of the Broly. I think our opponent realizing that they're not going to be able to press into us. Then we unfortunately pitch to restand our cooler to try and protect it, and then we have a back-to-back Gohan. But the opponent has a clear board and doesn't attack into us because I think they just don't want to give us extra cards, which is very fair, which makes us feel way more comfortable. We definitely felt way more in danger before had pressure come down our way because we wouldn't have felt so good going in. So we play the 1-drop Frieza here to get combo off the board, and then we play the 40k and just combo out. And I felt very safe going empty-handed here because I knew my opponent, with the amount of energy that he had available, if he didn't combo completely out of this, that we were in a fine position. So here we go, had to blow up some energy and combo the entirety of their hand. So I feel incredibly safe now because our opponent's at 1 life, and I know based on the amount of energy they have available that we would not be able to go down from 4 to 0, regardless of them having these 2 huge attackers on a board, especially when you add on the fact that we'll, keep drawing cards hand over. So they finally got rid of the Frieza, trying to probably just bink on the fact of going in the late game. Did get another Destructive Strength off, tried to reset on the ramp plan. Got a Turles in hand, and again didn't attack us, try to save the combo power. So here I'm considering if we're able to dig or not. Did go and dig into the Sorbet, swing into the leader, draw, and we go into the 25k, just not make it so free. And then we go and play a Zarbon, see if we can dig into a 3-drop Frieza or something like that. We do end up finding the 1-drop instead. Then from here, we play the 2-drop Zarbon, which can apply pressure, but I don't know if we can apply enough pressure, but I just kind of figured, why not? Let's press and see how much we can push in, especially with the Supernova. And then we combo out and got the game. Well, it looks like I would have been correct that if I had taken green, all we would have been playing all day are mirrors. Back-to-back greens, back-to-back Gohans, but it looks like we still got the dub. 2 in the bag, 4 more to go. Let's see if we can continue this trail and lock in some more wins. In this round 3, another green deck. And what can I say? Green is incredibly popular. Had we gone with the green deck, it would have been mirror, 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 which is something that's nice to see. Anyways, here the game plan, and this is probably where one of my mistakes may have been, using that energy marker to try and get early pressure, right? Like I'm just trying to do the same thing. But the unfortunate part here is that we need to account for the fact that our beat sticks later into the game need to be big enough to deal damage to Broly, who's at 25k. I'm already accounting for this, telling myself that all the 20ks in my hand are eventually just going to be combo fodder, but it would be nice to have some higher base power on the board instead. So this is where I would say my biggest mistake lies, was in not being able to account for that. But nevertheless, we do press for some early aggro here, some early pressure, especially with multiple Self-Awakeners on board, so not giving much opportunity for our opponent to be able to combo out without getting rid of cards in hand, which we're very comfortable with. Opponent here going to 4 on our turn 2, which is very cool. We're very happy about that in terms of making them not feel so cozy. But now we need to take a pivot from these 20ks into the 25k game plan. So opponent will Destructive Strength with the Awaken, is chilling currently at 5 energy, which is pretty good. And now we need to pivot. And how we pivot could be a big deal. And this is where we'll potentially be losing a good number of cards from our hand. Unfortunately, we didn't have the 3-drop 20k to go right away. So we're just going to Self-Awaken instead and just try to, be as efficient as we can. 25k beats into our opponent as often as possible. Did trade away a Vegeta, which we don't mind. That's 10k combo that we like to see go away. Here, we're going to go ahead and try to dig for a Frieza. And unfortunately, that was a whiff. So it goes to show that that wasn't the first time this tournament. So goes to show that we should probably maybe run a couple of more Friezas in the deck. Anyways, swing in for 25. And this is where the deck feels really bad against Broly, is like if you're in positions where you need to constantly combo up past 25. And this is why Broly is so incredibly good against aggro matchups, or much better than the other green decks. Here we have a Turles, which is an annoying amount of pressure. Not something we're super happy to see. But nevertheless, opponent swings in, clears out our board, and Turles is a hit that we decide, you know what, super combos are going to have their value, and there's probably no better value to use a super combo than using it on a Turles crit swing. Our opponent's at 3, so we feel comfortable being in a position to maybe deal some damage. Keep on hitting with those 25, see if we're able to get there. And now we go into 4, which will allow us to be able to go into the big chunky freeze. And here, hopefully we can get some damage in. So we swing for 40, does combo out. And then we'll go ahead, get the restand, get the swing in, and then a gigantic meteor just stops us there. Always painful, incredibly good card, super good on defense. And now we have to face a Broly, and now things are feeling a little precarious. I mean, our opponent doesn't have a lot of cards in hand. They only have 3. So if we can defend this, maybe we can position ourselves to hit a double strike, which would be nice. And it's kind of where we're considering things here. So thinking about going to attack, I think he realizes that we're going to 5 and may try to hit him with a double strike and see if he can just survive there. Only has 3 cards in hand, but naturally they could be very, very solid depending on if they're super combos. So here I'm trying to think, how can I sequence this? We swing at the lead and I try to get a gauge for, am I able to deal damage here? So we're going for 30 here, and it's not enough. Does have the super combo. And this is where I consider, like, maybe I can survive another turn or do something else. And this is where I play the double Kui, which is essentially a guaranteed additional turn when you're playing against green. But I think the problem here is that had I used those for gas to go into my opponent instead, probably would have put me in a better position to win. So I think my failure here was thinking that I needed to survive another turn because my opponent was at 3 to have a better setup going into my next turn for the double strike. So that was in mind, especially since I figured my opponent wanted to double strike me to be able to go in, and instead he plays a life gain. And this is where he gets himself at 4, and now I don't think I have the hand at all to be able to deal 4 damage. 3 damage is very doable, but unfortunately the deck cannot press 4 damage on an empty board all that easily, especially with our opponent who keeps on drawing additional cards. It just makes things a lot rougher for us, especially since we had no combo in hand. Our opponent goes and aggresses into us. Unfortunately, we can't defend ourselves, and that is game. Well, my prediction was green, and it wasn't too far off. This time Broly, and I think I played this one a little bit wrong. Like my Twitch chat had said, which if you want to catch the live streams, link will be in the description, I probably should have saved my energy marker to push out 4 energy plays, swinging big bodies, and then not having to force so much combo into the Broly. Once he got to 4 life, I knew there was no way way for me to pressure. And while I did get to test out some of the tech that we were looking at, I think I'm starting to come to the conclusion that if those Quees were pressure instead, maybe I would have been able to close out the game instead. It's not the end of the day. We're 2-1. There's still a shot for top 8. We gotta say goodbye to the boxes, but maybe we can get a couple of codes for digital. Game 4, and we're finally facing a non-green deck, which is so exciting, just to get some variation in our gameplay, which we're very excited about. Unfortunately, the angle isn't the best, but not much we can do about that. So in terms of the game plan, I like applying pressure to Goku Black, but you need to be aware that naturally they're going to try and line up their Goku Black turn, especially with the energy marker. They can do it as early as turn 3. So I'm being cognizant of what my charges are, because at any point in time, I do need to put a Zamasu in rest mode and deal with it. A crit, we do get rid of Zamasu, which is nice. If our opponent has trouble finding a Zamasu, it naturally makes it much easier for us. So here we do see a charge of a Goku Black vanilla. So they are on the vanillas, but this also indicates to us that they're probably on the engine, because naturally you do have the Goku Black decks that lean more on just being aggro instead. Here we go with the block and 5k combo, because we figured it would just be easier to defend. And then the opponent uses the 25k Vegeta that restands at the end of the turn and swings 30 into our Zarbon, and that's fine. We don't mind getting rid of it at that point. Our opponent committed a decent amount of resources into it. Here we swing into our lead, and he really doesn't want to take the crit hits, and we find ourselves another Zamasu. So I think we're at a position where our opponent's really digging for more Zamasu here, unfortunately, and we just keep on getting rid of them. Here we do find the Golden Frieza, so we want that in our back pocket in case we ever need to end our opponent with a double strike. And we set ourselves up going into the next turn. Obviously, Jeice needs multiple Ginyu forces to be able to become a 20k, so we want to position ourselves in that way as much as possible. Here we'll just take the hit because we do want to awaken, and then we go down to 4 here, and then our opponent plays out the Trunks, bouncing the Jeice back to our hand, which we don't necessarily love, but that's a-okay, and then ends the turn there, not wanting to give us too many cards. Thinking on charge, and we do charge the Raccoon. I figure the opponent here probably wants to see certain amount of cards. Pan is something I'm very happy that's in a drop as opposed to being in their hand. And here we just opt to go into the Raccoon, into the Jeice to play another Jeice, because I figured we just want to go as aggro as possible. So let's apply as much 20k pressure as possible. So here 20k, 20k, and another final 20k to get cards out of our opponent's hand, and hopefully doesn't have the defenses to be able to deal with our board too much without allowing us to be able to go into our big bodies next turn. Here it's a swing, draw, and attempt to get rid of the board, and we don't have the combo power to defend here. And I will say that's the biggest thing about Cooler, is that it's all gas, no brakes, and unfortunately the no brakes component means that you're never very often in a position to actually protect your board. Thankfully, Yellow with the Ginyu package has the best way to recreate a board if necessary. But nevertheless, here the double striker considered attacking with it, but decided didn't want to give us the additional cards going to the next turn, especially knowing how aggro we can be. So just opted to keep that set up for next turn instead. So here we do swing with the Cooler, get a draw, and now we're just really in the position of trying to get damage on our opponent. Obviously, we have 5. We could play the Golden Frieza if we want, but we don't really want to do that right now. Here we rest the 3-drop, because 2-drop Frieza can hit 3 drops or less, which is a huge number of cards. And here just continuing to apply pressure on our opponent. The lineup here obviously being that the 2-drop into the 3-drop is a nice combination here when you're on 5, if you don't want to commit into the Golden Frieza, which is something people consider a lot. Here we don't get the damage in, but we do restand the Cooler, or we do restand the Frieza and manage to get the damage in there. Opponent not too happy from their draw from what I figured, but we don't have a big hand, so we are susceptible to a pretty bad turn here depending on what. So we just need to be careful about what we defend. Go down to 3 here. And then we defend the attacks that we can, because we do know we're about to face a Goku Black with potentially an additional attack there, or maybe a double strike. And those are attacks that I probably can't defend. So here we see the Zamasu played, does get bottom deck, does play the Goku Black, and then plays into the 25k Vegeta again, just making sure that we figure out what options he decides to attack into. Go ahead and lose our board, which we don't mind too much at this point, because our opponent is very much in range for us to do something here. We swing into the board, try to get clear of some stuff, dig into some cards, and then we do go into the double striker. We lock down the Goku Black, so we know that we're safe with that. And here I'm just considering how much we have to combo away, and I just figured, you know what, we could save the super combo in our hand, but I think we'd rather just see if we can close out the game here. And opponent is forced to have to combo away the entirety of their hand as well as their board, and obviously Goku Black can't restand, so we feel much better here. We're at 3 life. We feel pretty comfortable depending on what our opponent's top deck is. So attacks into the Golden Frieza. And I think here our opponent realizes that it potentially could have had the win because he did top deck into the Double Striker. So we'll swing the Double Striker into our Golden Frieza, but we should be in a good position if we can get an attacker here. So swing into the Goku Black. We combo nothing. And then here we go into the cooler swing, and this should be a guaranteed win. Oh my God, he finds the super combo. No way. And there's nothing we can do about this now. No cards in hand, and we just get closed out. Unfortunately, bad beats are bad beats sometimes. Naturally, I think our opponent was getting there anyways, had he decided to attack into us as opposed to attacking into our battle card. But nevertheless, he hit the super combo. We couldn't finish it off, but we were so close. Now we're X2, and I'm not sold on the idea that we can actually cinch in a top 8, but nevertheless, we're here for experience. We're here to understand, is Cooler any good? Can we make it better? And how should we take it next time we're going to go to a tournament? And this is exactly what we're learning. And with those lessons learned, let's see if we can actually cinch up another win in the 5th round. Reeling from our loss, hopefully we don't end up doing that again, and we end up facing a Goku Black once more, this time being the one to be able to go second. And obviously we like being able to apply pressure here. So we'll just start with a sorbet and chill out a little bit. I think we're digging for our super combos at this point. Obviously, again, game plan is the same. Try and protect ourselves. We're not entirely sure what our opponent's on here. I mean, we do know that they run some form of Goku Black here, but does look like we're just going to get our card bounced back to our hand, which is nice for us. We do like the additional card. We don't mind it. We end up charging an additional copy. We do still have a sorbet in hand, which we'll play after this Zarbon to be able to dig. There's an argument to be made that maybe we should have played the Zarbon or the sorbet first to get the draw to dig deeper for Frieza, but it kind of all ends up being the same at the end of the day. Did try to grab a cooler there by mistake, but of course Zarbon can only grab Frieza's here. So opponent does charge their double strikers. That's one less to have to deal with or consider about. Opponent had their leader on the awaken side, but that's no big deal here. We both knew what was going on. Here I decided to crit hit. I do want to awaken so I can start applying 4-drop pressure if possible. Currently we are still chilling at 6. So and our opponent set up the Zamasu, hopefully going for a turn 4 Goku Black turn on their play. But we've got plans for that just to make sure it doesn't happen. So marker goes away. We attack with the cooler. And this time we do not forget that it pops a 2-drop. So very strong in the blue matchup for yellow in being able to prevent them from going into the turn 3 into the turn 4. Against this deck, you are pretty much forced to have to go into the turn 5 Goku Black as opposed to the turn 4, because oftentimes your setup won't survive. So it's very susceptible there. Here, the opponent swings on us, and I combo, forgetting the fact that our opponent swings for 20 as opposed to 15. So it just made the difference there. So we kind of rewinded there, ended up taking the hit here, and then we're going to end up getting our stuff bottom decked, which sucks, but there's nothing you can do about that. Sickle is an incredibly powerful card. Nevertheless, though, I do think the tempo is still on our side. We just need to be aware that we're likely going to be facing against a Goku Black next turn. So try to prep our hand as best as possible to be able to deal with that. See potentially if we're going to self-awaken or play a bunch of Ginyus is kind of where my head is at the moment. We do just rest mode the Mai while we're at it. No reason not to. And then we'll go ahead and combo up to 30. We really want to get super combos and cards out of our opponent's hand here. So clear out the board a little bit. Why not swing the sorbet into the Mai? It actually does something. May as well. And then we do play the Ginyu for an additional 20k out, but unfortunately have no follow-up, which doesn't feel good. And we are baiting to our opponent that we have some stuff to do with our energy, but realistically we're only running supernovas in the deck, so we don't really have all that much. And then the peel off loop here is very scary naturally because it just allows our opponent to have infinite resources, but he does go into our board, which I don't necessarily mind, right? If he's using the peel off loop to attack into my board to try to get rid of it, that's less that I have to deal with on my body, so I don't particularly mind. And the opponent kind of just spent the whole turn trying to dig and find for something, so we are actually feeling pretty comfortable here. We're going into our turn 5 without too much issue. Opt to not charge because we figured we'd actually want to keep the cards in our hands instead. And we're swinging for a beefy 40k crit here, which is a massive deal. Our opponent here, super combos, nice. So we're able to get another one out of the opponent's hand here. But again, no follow-up, unfortunately. Had the 4-drop play, but as I told you guys before, I don't particularly love hitting the 4-drop without my leader being awakened because I just don't want my card to be vulnerable, especially in the face of Goku Black where the cards could be bottom decked or brought back to hand or something. It's just a bunch of momentum that I'm trying to not lose, and I want to make sure that those cards have more impact when they hit the board. So here, swing with the Zamasu just goes for the 15, so I'll awaken, draw a card. I think we've got as much usage out of our crit side as possible, and here is vanilla Goku Black goes into his hand. Here's the swing, and then plays the 3-drop Goku Black. So this is a proxy tournament, so you are allowed to use proxies, and some proxies look better than others. This one is a 10k combo that also draws a card if your hand is at 7 or less. which is a nice value Goku Black. I don't particularly love it in the deck. I think you need to be a little bit more unfair than that, but the additional value goes a decent way. Here we play our Zarbon, and here's another whiff. So maybe we really do just need to have more Friezas in the deck, which is kind of crazy considering that the deck runs like 12, if not more. But regardless, we of course have to ignore our board because we don't want to be spending too much time trying to waste resources on not ending our opponent, especially since the odds of us getting rid of this Goku Black are incredibly low. Here we do play the Ginyu, get the 2 on tap because we have the 2 Zarbons on a board, and we're considering here we just go into our Frieza, which is able to rest mode the 3-drop, and we feel pretty good here. Our opponent obviously be trying to hold up for the Golden Frieza, which makes it much easier for us when they're expecting one big attack and we can hit with multiple attacks. Again, feeling bad that we don't have anything to do with our 2 energy, but our draws just didn't line up in a way for us to get usage there. Would have been really nice to have a Supernova to be able to keep this 3-drop in rest mode, but we just need to survive this turn and hopefully close out here. But peel off loops can make that so incredibly tough. Peel off into peel off is just so much free combo. And I have to be aware that at any point in time, because of the peel offs, because of the power of the blue decks, our opponent could combo up to some odd 100 at any point in time, most likely. So I just need to defend myself for all the potential attacks that I can, knowing that my opponent's trying to get me at 1 or 2 so that he can go for one final big swing. So everything before the last life is where I just need to commit as much defense as possible, because the last swing is one that I'm not going to be able to have a great time to get rid of. So bottom deck here for the Zamasu, probably lining up for a free for 2-drop vanilla play after that, which I feel pretty good. It means that we don't have to defend against Final Hope Slash. So here is a 30k swing that we need to defend out of. I'm at 2 life here, so obviously we want to make sure that we're defending as much as possible. Super combo gets us out of that one. Then it swings over for 20. We have a 5k combo, 1 last attacker, only extra cards in hand, and we can close out this game. Well, it looks like this time we're a master at going for back-to-back matchups. Not only did we have back-to-back Gohans, but now we got back-to-back Goku Blacks, this time taking it out and just having a really good time managing the board, pressing enough pressure, and having the life buffer that was allowing us to be able to actually defend and survive past the Goku Black and multiple 20 to 30k attacker swings. So we're now 3-2. Last round is up. Let's see if we can wrap up on a positive record in this last game. Into our last round, let's see if we can finish here positive. And we are playing against another yellow deck, which, to be fair, I think Frieza is an extremely good deck as well. We did almost miss playing the game because we weren't paying attention to the clock. And unfortunately, when our recording software is up, we don't get pings from Discord. But nevertheless, opponent was pretty gracious in letting us play. So we're pushing it in here. And I think as the more aggressive yellow deck, we want to apply pressure as much as possible. This is one of those matchups where Supernova could be a really big deal. So if we could find that one, then we would feel pretty good. But naturally, opponent playing a lot of the same cards that we are, and they care a lot more about the board control than we do. So we have to just try and see if we can, if it's worth saving or not saving here. We have a lot of Self-Awakeners in hand, actually, the 2-drop Frieza. So we figured, why not just get rid of one, because we're going to be able to guarantee our Self-Awaken here and see if we can't continue applying pressure. Do want to be able to make Frieza feel uncomfortable. If we can get stuff off his board, make ourselves feel better. So we're attacking into the 2-drop here, just trying to delay our opponent's Self-Awaken for an additional turn, especially since he's wasting a lot of cards trying to save it here. And the decision marker for me was here. If our opponent lets us go, then we attack with crit. If our opponent keeps it on board, then we'll just attack with our leader here. And we did end up managing to clear it out. Trying to think about what the energy play here. Play a Jice and move forward. I'm not gonna lie, very sad to see the Supernova in our energy here. Probably one of the cards that I probably should have kept in hand for this specific matchup. But lessons learned, hey, this is the first time with the deck. And we learn these things as we play. So now we're on 20, so our opponent needs to put a little bit more effort into clearing our board here. Does end up leaving 2 cards on board, which we don't particularly mind here. We do end up charging a cooler because we just have so many of them on board. And I'm just considering, do we attack with the 15k first or not? Because we have a bunch of Ginyus in our hand. I'm like, well, if it's all going to be 20ks at the end of the day, doesn't really matter. And this is where the Ginyu package really comes together in being able to apply pressure. We play 3, play the Raccoon, play the 2-drop Ginyu. We have enough Frieza Force there to be able to restand it. Now we have 3 available. Jice is now a 20k, so we're just going to apply as much pressure as possible. Obviously, Frieza wants to awaken, but wants to awaken on its terms. Here we have 1 more for Jice, so another 1-drop at 20k just to keep applying the pressure. Goes down to 3 now, so we're in a comfortable position. Unfortunately, we don't have even more attackers, so we're just going to pay the 1, play the Sorbet, and now it's on our opponent to try and clear this board. charges a 4-drop of Frieza, which is kind of smart, knowing that probably needs a little bit more gas to be able to clear the board. Does have a total 5 with the energy marker, and Cooler is just so extremely good in these mirror style matches, just because being able to pop cards, being able to attack, and being able to clear board, and then do it all over again on defense. Here we're just clarifying that Cooler does need to rest mode the card that it wants to pop. You can choose a card that's already in rest mode, but you can't rest mode something and pop something else. That's just something to be aware of. Here, attacks into our Ginyu, gets rid of our Ginyu, and we just can't commit resources into protecting our board. But thankfully, after all is said and done, we should be in a position to still have a few attackers, which isn't terrible. So here we attack into the Jeice, and we still have 2 Ginyus on board, which is not terrible. Pays the 1, gets the Zarbon, digs into the deck, and does find the double striker. So we just need to be aware that our opponent has that live at any point in time. So we don't want to put ourselves in a position to lose to it. We do charge up to 5, and then we have our own Cooler, which we feel pretty good about in terms of applying pressure. And obviously, there's always the play that we can restand it on our opponent's turn to have an additional blocker for the double striker, which could put us in a pretty precarious position. Cooler able to clear out cards off of the board. And here we're just trying to combo as much as we can to apply as much pressure as we can to make our opponent feel as uncomfortable as we can. Hopefully get rid of as many cards as possible so that we can survive into the next turn here. Unfortunately, we don't have really any real combo power in hand. So consider going into it. We just go for 30. Hopefully we can get rid of multiple cards out of our opponent's hand here and just have the one in hand being explicitly because we want to have a discard to be able to restand our Cooler, to be able to defend ourselves. Unfortunately, something I didn't realize at the time, but I'll come to realize now, is that the Cooler will be able to rest mode our own Cooler at any point in time. So if he doesn't attack with it first, we'll never be in a position to be able to restand our Cooler and then block, which was something I was banking on earlier, but unfortunately isn't to play. Although even if we have a dead combo in hand because it's the Golden Frieza, we can always pitch that away and get ourselves some additional combo with the Raccoon. So potentially if there are 10k combos, super combos, anything in our life right now, we potentially don't lose. So fingers crossed, hopefully we can dig into those. There's not much we can do against this double strike here. Opponent's just considering whether he should combo or not. And I'm just like double checking to make sure if we're able to do something with the Cooler to rest mode his own Cooler just to prevent it from attacking. Unfortunately, the sequencing there does not work. We take the life. All we draw are 5k combos, however. And then now our opponent's thinking about whether they combo or not. They really should have comboed because realistically, I think you can account for the fact that you probably don't survive into the next turn if you don't combo. But here opts to eventually combo into 40, and we unfortunately only had 40 available if we restood the Raccoon. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get there in the Mirror of Yellows. We faced off against a mid-ranger Frieza that was able to stabilize on some of the board and made it tough for us. I think there were potentials for us to get there had we drawn into maybe a Supernova, keeping the Cooler in rest mode. Unfortunately, the way that our opponent sequenced the attack, even if they weren't aware of it at the beginning, did push them in a position where we were just never able to block with Cooler, which feels bad, but hey, just gotta take those where we can. When it comes to the deck, I still have a lot of faith in it. I think you pull back the curtain on the techs and you just lean into what Cooler does best, which is press aggro. In terms of cleaning up the ratios, we can get rid of Kui. I think the tech just doesn't do any good. You can probably take your vanillas and take him to 3 or 4, and the 1-drop Frieza, which is nice combo power and utility, can probably go down to 3 because the deck is less about utility and more about pressing your opponent. Nevertheless, I want to thank Egg for the tournament, for everyone stopping by the stream. And if you guys like the style of video, I tried something a little bit new with it. Hey, a like and a subscribe goes a long way of letting me know that you guys want me to keep recapping my tournaments like this. Thank you so much for stopping by, and we'll catch you on the next one.